I thought I had the perfect family until one dinner tore it all apart. My wife refused wine. My daughter dropped a bombshell about Uncle Preston. And I uncovered a betrayal so tangled it dragged in my business, my brother-in-law, and secrets stretching back decades. What followed turned me from a trusting husband into a man who learned sometimes the harshest revenge is simply speaking the truth. My name is Chase Stone. I'm 43 years old. And until 3 months ago, I believed I had everything figured out. 20 years of marriage to Camila, a beautiful daughter named Amelia who had just turned 16, and a business my father founded that I grew into a multi-million-dollar company. Stone Auto Group wasn't only how we paid the bills. It was our legacy, our good name, everything 2 generations had worked for. The first warning should have been when Camila returned from her sister's wedding in Miami, acting off. She'd always been affectionate, always met me with a kiss when I came home from the lot. But suddenly she was withdrawn, distracted, glued to her phone. When I reached for her, she'd recoil with some excuse about being tired or stressed over Amelia's college apps. Then there was the vague doctor's appointment she mentioned in passing, something about routine tests, women stuff she didn't want to talk about. I didn't press. I figured she deserved privacy. What kind of husband interrogates his wife about every medical visit? A smart one, apparently. The second warning was how close she'd become with her sister Brenda and Brenda's husband, Preston. Preston Hayes had always seemed stand-up, quiet, in construction management, someone who treated Brenda like gold. He'd married into our family 5 years earlier, and I'd come to think of him like a brother. We even tossed around the idea of him joining the dealership, maybe opening a 5th location together. Lately, though, family events felt different. Camila would light up when Preston walked in. She'd find reasons to sit by him, laugh a beat too loudly at his jokes, brush his arm while they talked. When I brought it up once, she rolled her eyes and called me jealous and paranoid, said I was working too much and imagining things. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was overreacting. The auto industry is ruthless. Success attracts people who want a piece of what you've built. I'd been fighting a hostile takeover from a national chain, and the pressure made me suspicious of everything and everyone. But then came the night that changed everything. Camila said we were having a big family dinner at Romano's, our usual place for celebrations. Nothing special, she said. Just wanted everyone together. My parents, her parents, Brenda and Preston, even my brother Jake, who rarely shows up to family events anymore. On the drive to the restaurant, something felt off. Camila was nervous, twisting her wedding ring, checking her reflection every few minutes. When I asked if she was okay, she snapped that she was fine and told me to focus on driving. At Romano's, she insisted on sitting across from Preston instead of beside me like she usually did, saying she wanted to go over wedding planning with Brenda. Apparently, they were helping plan a cousin's wedding. But I watched her eyes keep drifting to Preston, her lip trembling when he spoke. The warning signs were flashing like neon for anyone willing to see. But love makes you blind. When you've built a life with someone, you choose to ignore the obvious. You tell yourself you're overreacting, that love will fix it, that the woman who promised fidelity 20 years ago wouldn't betray that vow. I was about to learn how catastrophically wrong a man can be. The air at Romano's that night felt charged, like the calm before a storm. Everyone was there. My parents, Camila's folks, Brenda, Preston, even Jake who'd driven down from Chicago. The table looked like a celebration but felt wrong from the moment we sat. Camila fidgeted with her napkin, barely touched her plate. When the waiter offered wine, she quickly covered her glass. "No wine tonight, honey?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Camila Stone forced a smile. "Just not in the mood." That was the moment it hit me. My wife never turned down wine at family dinners. Never. She always ordered the house red and toasted the family. Tonight was different. Suddenly all those doctor's appointments snapped into focus. My chest tightened as the pieces aligned. The distance, the secrecy, the unexplained visits. My mind raced through possibilities until it landed on the bluntest one. "Or maybe," I said loud enough for the table to hear, "it's because you're on antibiotics for gonorrhea from your cruise." Silence swallowed the room. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations cut off. My mother gasped, nearly dropping her water. Camila Stone's face went white. "Chase, what are you talking about?" "Don't be ridiculous," she said, but my voice stayed steady despite the anger coiling inside. The mysterious illness, the avoidance, every hidden appointment. Preston Hayes shifted, eyes flicking between us. Brenda Hayes looked bewildered, glancing between her sister and husband. "You've lost your mind," Camilla Stone whispered, though her voice trembled. My father cleared his throat. "Son, maybe this isn't the place." "No, Dad," I interrupted, keeping my stare on my wife. "This is exactly the place. Let's talk about honesty and family values." The waiter hovered, probably drawn by the tension, then backed away when he saw the scene. "Chase Stone, stop this right now," Camilla Stone hissed through clenched teeth. "You're embarrassing the family." I laughed, a bitter sound. "That's rich coming from someone who—" "Daddy," Amelia Stone interrupted, her 16-year-old voice slicing through the room. "Are you talking about Uncle Preston?" Time froze. Every head turned to my daughter, who sat wide-eyed, innocent and unaware she had set off a nuclear blast. Preston Hayes went ashen. Brenda Hayes stared at her husband in dawning horror. My parents sat stunned, trying to make sense of it. "What did you say, sweetheart?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Amelia Stone looked around, suddenly sensing wrongness. I thought Mom said not to tell you Uncle Preston visited when you were at the dealership because it'd make you upset about work stuff." The silence that followed was crushing. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of trust, 20 years of building a life. All of it splintered by an innocent line from our daughter. The quiet after Amelia's words stretched taut like a wire. Preston looked like he wanted to vanish under the table. Brenda Hayes stared at her husband in growing horror as puzzle pieces she never wanted began to click together. "You're confused, sweetheart," Camilla Stone snapped, but my daughter shook her head. "No, Mom. I remember. I was homesick that Tuesday when Uncle Preston came over. You said it was about planning Grandma's birthday, but you were in the bedroom talking for a long time." Color left Kama's face entirely. Preston finally found his voice, stammering, "Listen, Chase, this isn't—" "Shut up," I said softly, but the edge in my tone shut him down. "Don't you dare try to explain this away." My father reached for me across the table. "Son, let's take this outside." "No, Dad. Everyone needs to hear this." I pushed my chair back slowly. It scraped the floor. 20 years. Camilla. 20 years I trusted you, built a life with you. And you were what? Screwing my brother-in-law behind my back. Brenda Hayes lunged across the table at her sister. "You piece of trash. How could you do this to me?" Preston grabbed his wife's arm. "Brenda, please," he said. She spun on him, fury unleashed. "Don't you touch me. Don't you ever touch me again." The restaurant fell deathly quiet. Other diners stared as our family tore itself apart in public. The manager hovered, likely deciding whether to call security. "How long?" I demanded, my voice cutting through the chaos. Camilla Stone's eyes filled with tears, real or calculated, I couldn't tell. "Chase, please, not here. Not in front of Amelia. Answer the question. How long?" Preston's voice came out barely a whisper. 2 years. 2 years. 2 years of lies, of family events where they'd sat across from me and Brenda, playing their parts while betraying us both. 2 years of defending Kama when my gut told me otherwise. A cold precision replaced the burning fury in my chest. This had moved past adultery. It was an orchestrated tearing apart of 2 families and the corruption of everything I'd built. "Get out," I said calmly. Camilla Stone blinked. "What?" "Get out of my restaurant. Get out of my sight. Get out of my house. Both of you." The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Amelia sat beside me, tears streaking down her face, apologizing over and over for stirring trouble. I kept telling her none of it was her fault, that grown-ups sometimes make horrific choices and children shouldn't have to carry those secrets. Camilla followed in her BMW, probably plotting her next move, figuring out how to spin this disaster in her favor. But I was already 3 steps ahead, my mind clicking through the implications with the same strategic clarity that had built Stone Auto Group into a regional powerhouse. 2 years meant this wasn't a heat-of-the-moment mistake. This was deliberate. Every backyard barbecue, every holiday, every time I'd asked Preston over to talk shop, they'd been playing me. At home, I sent Amelia up to pack a bag. "You're staying with Grandma and Grandpa tonight," I said. Daddy has things to work out with Mommy. My 16-year-old wasn't dumb. She knew her parents' marriage had just collapsed and was trying to make sense of how her offhand comment detonated everything. "Will you and Mom get divorced?" she asked quietly. The question landed harder than I expected. "I don't know yet, sweetheart. But whatever happens, it won't change how much I love you." After dropping Amelia at my parents', I drove back to find Kama pacing in the living room like a caged animal. She'd changed out of her dinner dress into jeans and a sweater, trying on a plain mom act. "We need to talk," she said before I spoke. "No," I replied. "You need to listen." Camilla Stone's eyes flashed. "You don't get to dictate." "I do now," I said. "This is my house, bought with money from my business in my name. If you want to stay, you follow my rules." She recoiled as if I'd struck her. The woman who'd been manipulating me for 2 years was suddenly facing a version of her husband she'd never seen. "First rule," I continued, settling into my chair with measured calm. "No more lies. I want names, dates, places. I want every time you were with him. Every betrayal." "Chase, you're being unreasonable," she said. "Unreasonable?" I laughed cold. "I haven't even started being unreasonable yet." The next morning I was at my desk by 6 a.m., but I wasn't looking at sales reports or inventory. I was poring over bank statements, credit card records, and phone logs my attorney had rushed to get. When you own 4 successful dealerships, you learn information is power. And I intended to have all of it. What I found made my stomach drop. The affair wasn't just emotional treachery. It was theft. Camila had tapped our joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms, lavish dinners, and weekend getaways with Preston. She'd even bought him a Rolex for his birthday charged to our business account, calling it a family gift for his marketing help. The real blow came when I called an old college buddy who now works as a private investigator. In 2 hours he confirmed something that made everything worse. This wasn't Camila's first affair. 3 years into our marriage, she'd had a 6-month relationship with her personal trainer. 5 years after that, it was her boss at the marketing firm where she once worked. How did you miss this? I asked myself, staring at photos and receipts that sketched a map of deception stretching nearly 2 decades. My phone buzzed with a text from Brenda Hayes. "Can we meet? I found something in Preston's things you need to see." An hour later we sat in a downtown coffee shop, both of us looking like survivors. Brenda's eyes were rimmed with red from crying, but there was steel in her voice. "I've been going through his computer," she said, sliding a flash drive across the table. "There are emails. Chase. Hundreds, going back 3 years." I plugged the drive into my laptop and felt the color leave my face. The emails weren't just love notes. They were plans, blueprints to siphon money from both our families. Plans for Camila to push me into making Preston a partner in the dealership. Plans to run away together with whatever they could liquidate. "They've been playing the long game," I said quietly. Brenda Hayes nodded, jaw tight. "Look at this email from last month." I scrolled and my hand balled into a fist. Camila had written to Preston mocking my life, calling it boring and predictable and saying she deserved better than suburban mediocrity with a man obsessed with car sales. The woman I'd loved for 20 years, the mother of my child, had been quietly dismantling our life while mocking everything I'd done to provide for us. "What do you want to do?" Brenda asked. "Partner. Accomplice in seeking justice." I closed the laptop and stared at her. "I want to destroy them. Legally, financially, socially. They want to play games with our lives. Let's show them consequences." By noon I had 3 attorneys, a forensic accountant, and a PR firm on retainer. The upside to owning successful businesses is you know the best people in every field. When it's time to fight, you call in cavalry. My divorce lawyer was ruthless and brilliant. She'd already filed to freeze joint accounts, block Camila's access to her safe deposit box, and set temporary custody that heavily favored me. But the smartest move she suggested was to immediately remove Kama from all business accounts and insurance policies. The attorney told me she had no idea yet. But as of this morning, she no longer had access to credit cards, her health insurance was gone, and she had no legal claim on any business assets. "The prenup you signed 20 years ago is ironclad," he said. The forensic accountant uncovered something even worse. Using company money to fund a personal life wasn't merely infidelity, it was embezzlement. Every hotel stay, every extravagant dinner, every gift bought with corporate funds could be treated as theft. I wasn't content to sit back and defend. I planned to strike in ways that would hurt them both where it mattered most. Preston Hayes worked as a project manager at a major construction firm. One call to his CEO reporting an employee inflating expenses and diverting funds would end his career in an instant. The construction world was small and connected. Once his reputation was blown, he'd never get hired again. For Kama, the social fallout would be more refined. She liked to be seen as a community leader, serving on charity boards and hosting fundraisers. My PR team was already drafting a precise statement about personal betrayals and financial irregularities that would make sure she was unwelcome in those circles from then on. My phone buzzed. Camila's name lit the screen. Chase Stone speaking. I answered without warmth. Chase, please. We need to talk. Her voice sounded panicked now, probably because her cards were being declined. No, we don't. Talk to my attorney. Her name is Jennifer Walsh at Walsh & Associates. She'll explain your new reality. You can't just cut me off. I have rights. You had rights when you were my faithful wife. Now you're someone who stole from my company and broke my trust. Consider yourself lucky if I don't have you arrested. I hung up and went back to my computer. There was still work to finish. The last element of my plan involved Amelia. My daughter needed the unvarnished truth, not the watered-down story Camila would feed her. She was 16, old enough to understand what her mother's choices really meant. That evening I sat with Amelia at my parents' house and laid out the proof. Not graphic details, but enough timelines and financial records to show this was not a one-off mistake. It was years of deliberate betrayal. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, I told her. But you deserve to know why our family is falling apart. And you deserve to know it's not your fault. She studied the documents, then looked at me. What happens now, Dad? She asked. Now we rebuild without people who shouldn't be part of our lives. 3 days into my methodical dismantling of Camille and Preston's worlds, I got a call that stopped me cold. My private investigator's voice was grave when he dropped the bombshell that made my stomach flip. Chase, you need to sit down for this. I've been digging deeper into Preston's past, and there's something you need to know about your daughter. My heart slammed. What about Amelia? I demanded. The timeline doesn't add up. He told me he'd pulled medical records legally, matching birth dates and conception windows. Amelia was born in March 2008, which placed conception in June 2007. According to your credit card records, that's when Camila took that solo trip to visit her college friend in Denver. The room tilted. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying Preston Hayes lived in Denver from 2006 to 2008. He was doing construction work there before he came back here and met Brenda. The timing lines up too closely to be a coincidence. I ended the call and stared at the wall, trying to digest what I'd just been told. The daughter I'd raised for 16 years, the one I taught to drive, help with homework, walk to school with every morning, might not be mine biologically. The thought hit like a punch. Another voice in my head fought back. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does. Years of midnight fevers, soccer practices, and bedtime stories. That makes a dad. Still, I needed certainty. For legal reasons if nothing else. If Preston were Amelia's biological father, it would change custody, inheritance, and support issues. The DNA test was straightforward. A cheek swab from Amelia during what she thought was a routine doctor's visit, and a sample from Preston taken from a coffee cup my investigator grabbed at his job. Waiting for the results felt endless. Meanwhile, Camila kept calling, leaving frantic messages about explaining everything and fixing things for Amelia's sake. She even showed up at the dealership, caused a scene, and security had to escort her out. When the DNA envelope finally arrived, my hands shook opening it. The letters blurred. Probability of paternity 0%. Relief hit me so hard I laughed out loud. Amelia was mine. Whatever lies Camila had told, my daughter was my daughter. But that relief hardened into something colder. Camila had let doubt hang over me for 16 years. She'd kept the secret of that Denver trip, knowing it matched the affair timeline, and never owned up to it. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. Jennifer, I need you to add something to the divorce filing. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, and include the DNA evidence in our custody case. The nuclear option was now in play. Camila had pushed this past simple cheating into what felt like psychological warfare. It was time to respond in kind. That evening I had the hardest talk of my life with Amelia. She had a right to know what her mother had done, and she had to hear from me that none of it changed who she was to me. No matter what your mother did, no matter what she says or anyone else says, you're my daughter. Period. Amelia hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo. More than you'll ever know. The next morning brought news that Preston Hayes had been arrested. The fraudulent loan papers plus evidence of embezzlement from his construction company led to felony charges that could mean 5 to 10 years behind bars. Camila, meanwhile, hired a hard-edged attorney named Davidson who specialized in high-conflict divorces. His opening move was to demand an emergency hearing accusing me of financial abuse and parental alienation. The courtroom fight was quick and decisive. My attorney laid out proof of Camila's systematic theft from company accounts, her sham use of credit cards, and the conspiracy with Preston to commit loan fraud. The judge's face grew sterner as more evidence came in. Mrs. Stone, the judge said at last, given the proof of financial misconduct and the clear pattern of deception, I'm ordering supervised visitation only until these criminal matters are resolved. Camila went pale. Supervised visitation meant she could only see Amelia with a court-appointed monitor and for a few hours each week. After the hearing, she confronted me one last time. "You've destroyed my entire life," she sobbed. "No," I answered quietly. "You destroyed your life when you chose to betray your family. I just refused to go down with you. What about Amelia? She needs her mother." I looked at the woman who had shared my bed and dreams for 2 decades and felt only pity. Amelia needs a mother she can trust. You're not that person anymore. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Camila received exactly what the prenup specified: 10% of marital assets, no claim to business property, and limited visitation rights conditioned on completing counseling and repaying the embezzled funds. Preston Hayes was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Brenda kept their house and filed for an annulment, claiming fraud to void the marriage. 3 months after that disastrous dinner at Romano's, I stood in my office looking over the lot full of cars, thinking about second chances and fresh starts. Amelia was doing well in therapy, preparing college applications, and had started dating a nice boy from her AP calculus class. My phone rang. It was my attorney with news about a business opportunity, a chance to grow Stone Auto Group into the luxury market with a new Mercedes dealership. "What do you think?" she asked. I smiled, feeling a genuine optimism I hadn't known in months. "I think it's time to build something new. Some people learn from mistakes. Others grow stronger because of them." The betrayal that was meant to ruin me had instead freed me from a marriage built on lies and opened doors I never expected. Camila had tried to trade me in for a newer model. Instead, she gave me the chance to become the man I was always meant to be. 1 year after that night at Romano's, I stood in the showroom of my newest purchase, Stone Luxury Motors, which focused on high-end European cars. The Mercedes-Benz dealership had been a long-held dream, but it took losing everything I thought mattered to find the focus to reach it. Amelia walked through the polished space, admiring models and telling me about her acceptances to 3 top-tier universities. At 17, she had become a remarkable young woman, stronger, more independent, and surprisingly wise about human nature after seeing her mother's betrayal up close. "Dad, look at this one," she called, pointing to a silver convertible. "Perfect for college, don't you think?" I laughed, remembering when buying a car had required family meetings and budget talks. "We'll talk about it after you pick which university you want to attend." The past year had changed both of us in ways I hadn't expected. Amelia had wrestled with anger toward her mother at first, but therapy helped her see Camila's choices as personal flaws rather than a failure of daughterhood. She learned to set boundaries while still loving the woman who gave birth to her. My phone buzzed with a text from Brenda Hayes. "Coffee tomorrow? I have news about the business." Brenda and I had formed an unlikely friendship, born from shared betrayal and mutual respect. She used her settlement to launch a marketing consultancy that was already doing well, and we started talking about partnering to promote the luxury dealership. The strange truth was that Preston and Camila's treachery had freed both Brenda and me to become better versions of ourselves. Mr. Stone, my sales manager, approached with a clipboard. The regional Mercedes representative wants to schedule a meeting about opening a second location. Success felt different now. Cleaner and more purposeful. Every win seemed earned rather than expected. The business had grown from my father's modest used car lot into something that would have made him proud. That evening Amelia and I sat in our remodeled living room working on college essays together. She was writing about resilience and learning to trust her own judgment while I reviewed plans for expanding into a luxury RV market. "Do you ever miss how things used to be?" she asked during a break. I thought carefully. I miss the security of trusting everyone, but I don't miss living with lies. She nodded. Mom called again yesterday. She wants to take me to dinner next week. Amelia still kept limited contact with Camila, who was slowly piecing her life back together after losing everything. Supervised visitation had ended, but their relationship remained cautious and distant. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "That I'd think about it. Is that okay?" "It's your choice, sweetheart. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." Being able to say that honestly felt like the greatest victory. 2 years had passed since the night that changed everything. I stood on the deck of my new lake house watching Amelia and her boyfriend Gar practice wakeboarding while Brenda grilled bearers for a 4th of July celebration. Life had settled into a rhythm I never imagined during those dark months of divorce and court battles. The business had expanded to 6 locations across 2 states. Amelia had chosen Northwestern University for engineering and kept a polite but distant relationship with her mother. Most unexpectedly, Brenda and I found that a friendship born from betrayal could grow into something deeper and more genuine. "The burgers are ready," Brenda called, her voice carrying across the water to where I stood, reflecting on how much life could change when you stopped accepting less than you deserved. We weren't married. Both of us were wary of legal entanglements after our past experiences, but we'd built something honest and straightforward based on shared values rather than romance or convenience. Amelia came up from the dock, dripping and grinning. "Dad, Garrett wants to know if you'll teach him to drive the boat tomorrow." "Of course, as long as he promises not to run it into the dock like someone I know did last month," I said. She laughed and grabbed a towel, looking every inch the confident young woman she'd become. The trauma of finding her mother's betrayal had shaped her, but it hadn't broken her. It taught her to prize authenticity over appearances and substance over charm. "Any word from your mother lately?" I asked casually. "She texted last week. She's engaged to some guy she met at work. Apparently he manages the store where she works." Camila had rebuilt in smaller circumstances. A modest apartment, a retail job, and a relationship that matched her reduced situation. The woman who once hosted charity galas was now planning a wedding that would probably cost less than her old monthly salon bill. "How do you feel about that?" I asked. Amelia shrugged. "I'm happy she found someone. I hope she learned something from everything that happened." Her maturity reminded me that kids are often more resilient than parents expect. She processed her mother's betrayal, learned from it, and moved forward without carrying destructive anger or unrealistic expectations. As the sun set over the lake, throwing golden light across the water, I thought about the road that led us here. Preston Hayes was finishing his sentence and would be released to probation next year. Camila was building a new life with limited means but, apparently, a sincere commitment to change. I stood on my own property surrounded by people who chose to be part of my life rather than people who felt obligated to tolerate me. "Dad," Amelia said, interrupting my thoughts, "Brenda wants to know if you're ready to eat or if you're going to stand there looking philosophical all evening." I laughed and walked toward the table where real relationships were made. One honest conversation, one shared meal, one genuine moment at a time. The betrayal meant to destroy our family had instead taught us what family really is. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you makes room for the best thing that was waiting to happen.